thank you so much for coming in and joining us on this webinar. This has been a topic that's come up actually quite a bit from time to time, and throughout the history of TSANet, which is now 25 years, it's never really been a high volume thing. And so for those people that have even been around for a while, or maybe you're new into TSANet, so you're coming into this and you're wanting to make sure that you can get the value out of it. So what we did was went back and looked at some of those things that we can do to improve usage. TSANet historically has never been a high volume thing and probably never will be, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable. In fact, it can be very valuable. So we want to go through actually 3 phases of this. One is talk about onboarding and adoption, which is to get you started right, what you can do, some of those things that you can do to get started right. And we're going to go into case management. Paul's going to guide you through that as well. And then we'll talk about partner manager at the very end of it, which is something that a lot of companies are starting to do that increases the volume of TSANet. So I'm going to send this over to Paul. Paul's going to walk you through the majority of this, and we're ready to go, Paul. So go ahead, take it away.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Dennis. So yeah, let's just get started here, taking first look at the onboarding and adoption phase. And as Dennis indicated, this is definitely the key to usage, getting kind of on the right footing. And we see this happening in 3 different phases, or these kind of areas of importance. So roles and responsibilities, I'll go into that in detail for setting up kind of who's responsible for what within the TSANet relationship. Caller access methods, obviously an important piece, and then manager and caller training. We'll spend a little bit of time on the options for that. So this slide shows what we see as best practice for roles and responsibilities. And we see these 3 different roles. It could be that one person has 2 of these roles, maybe one person even has 3 of these roles in certain organizations. But I think it's important to kind of understand that these are 3 areas of responsibility. Whether one person's capable of managing more than one, I think usually is defined by the size of the organization and how you're organized. But first and foremost is the business manager. So this is a person that has overall ownership for TSANet, handles all the business details of TSANet, like renewals, things like that, maintains the overall structure of TSANet. So who are the program managers, who are the key users, and is really the person that's responsible for adoption and usage, right? What are the features that your company uses within TSANet? So then the next area of responsibility is a program manager. That will be a little bit more obvious when we talk about the expanding TSANet to your partners. So if you are doing that, and we highly recommend that as part of the keys to increasing usage, that usually brings on a program manager. And whether that is someone that has a title such as a partner manager, or could be even a product manager if you're focused on maybe a technology partner program aspect. So that tends to be someone that's responsible, though, for managing that aspect of the partner relationship. And then the third, and I would say this is probably the most important when it comes to actually using TSANet, is the key user. And I will go in a lot more detail about this when we talk about the case process, but this tends to be someone that is in the operation, someone that is actually part of solving the cases or managing that process. So it could be an escalation manager, it could be a line manager, but it's someone that is really helping the end users, which are your technical support engineers, on how to use TSANet, deal with any feedback, any exceptions. So kind of really being there when the collaboration's occurring. So we see these as, again, the roles. Again, it could be the same person on a couple of them, but I think it's important for everyone to understand that these roles need to be fulfilled for you to get a successful onboarding. The next thing is user access methods. We really have 2 different access levels. One is what we call callers, and these are for your support engineers. You, as an admin, can create accounts for callers, or callers can self-register. And you'll see in a lot of areas we do set this up as one of the responsibilities of a key user. So say a key user is a manager in a particular physical location. You give them an admin level access, and they're able to create accounts, remove accounts for callers, so kind of manage who's able to use and not use. In large organizations, self-registration is an option, but in general, it's good to have someone that's kind of responsible for making sure the support engineers have access. And then the second level is administrators. And again, this is really where the business manager is controlling who has administrative access, because these folks can manage other parts of the system, contact documents, who has access, who does not have access, and this you really want to kind of control at a business manager level. Okay, and then the third area is then training your teams. And I'll talk a little bit more where to find a lot of these materials, but there is two different types of training. The first is manager training, and in fact, we just had a webinar on this, so we tend to have webinars on manager training. We record those. We make both the slides as well as a recording available in the member help, and I'll show you where that is. But that obviously is targeted towards business managers, targeted towards program managers, targeted towards key users. So these are folks who need to really understand a larger part of TSANet. And then the second is the caller training, and this is a much shorter version of training. Really focuses in on how do you use the member web, how do you find a member, and then how do you do the collaboration and some Q&A there. Again, this tends to be 10 minutes or so to give you a sense. So really kind of focused on what the caller needs, and we do in a lot of cases co-brand the caller training. So we have some templates for co-branding. We are available to kind of work with your teams to do that. In some cases, it is us doing the training for the callers. We record that, make that available then for you to use as an internal asset. We've even done kind of more tuned training videos for people to put that on their extranet as well. But I think it just kind of reinforces the importance of making sure your tech support engineers are trained on how to use it, and we're certainly available to help you accomplish that as well. It's probably the key part of making sure you're in place to go live, and then continually refreshing that. Obviously, you have new engineers coming in, and then you need to refresh this from time to time as well. Okay, so then I want to focus a little bit on the new member help, and you'll find this if you're logged into the member web. There's a little help icon up to the right, so you select that. I'll take you to the new member help. You can also find it from our public web as well. So either way, you're going to end up in this newly designed member help area. And the content is organized under these three areas. So on board, you're going to see all the things that have to do with getting you up and running on TSANet. These are things that are really targeted towards the business admin, but there's things also that are appropriate for program managers and key users, things like creating contact documents, adding users, all those types of things are in there. Adoption, you're going to find all the training materials. You're going to find some other communication materials, and you'll find this recorded webinar here as well. And then for expand, you're going to find the things that you would use to kind of expand TSANet. And we'll talk about the most important one, which is expanding TSANet to your partner programs. But you'll see other content here like case exchange, et cetera, as well for you to take continued advantage of TSANet. But I just wanted to highlight the new member help. If you've not seen it, definitely take a look at that. There's some new content, some organized content, and this is really the place that you would go to stay refreshed on TSANet. And
Paul, I do want to mention, because just for this webinar, as you're aware, right? This is new, just within what now, 2-3 weeks that we've got this up. So it's all been refreshed. And we obviously continue to work on it, but if you haven't seen it, please go take a look at it. Sorry about that, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yep, no, perfect. Okay, so that's kind of it on the, we'll say getting started, right? Which of course is probably the most important piece. When we see people that aren't using TSANet and we kind of go in and try to figure out why that is, we always find something that didn't go well during the onboard, whether it's, oh look, they didn't add support engineers. Sometimes it's the business admin is the one that has the access, and they haven't really opened it up to support agents, or they haven't done the trainings. So we tend to find if you're not using, it's probably take a look in the onboard phase, make sure all those things are done, and then it's probably also a thing of refreshing training that kind of gets your engineers to use TSANet. Okay, so with that, let me transition into the next area, and this is integrating TSANet into your case management process. So this is taking a look at where does it sit in your case management process. Obviously, metrics, feedback is all part of this as well. But again, we tend to find if people aren't using TSANet, again, if you haven't taken a look at your case management process and have sections in there on how to use TSANet for partner management, obviously that's a key part of training new hires when they come in. You're teaching them how to use your systems and your processes. I need to make sure that TSANet is covered in those as well. So we've got some best practices for that as well that we see members using. And again, the first one, I'm just going to reiterate here the key user role, and stressing that this is an operational champion for TSANet. So you do want to make sure that this person isn't, for example, a support readiness person or a project manager or someone like that that's not inside of the operation, right? You really need someone that is in the day-to-day operations for the case process, making sure people are using it. We do recommend, if you have a lot of different physical locations, that you take a look at, do we have the right key users for the particular geographies. Doesn't mean that you need to have one for every single place, but it would make sense if you, for example, have 3 key locations and they're spread throughout the world, that you take a look at, should we really have key users in each of these places. They would train new team members, make sure they're aware of TSANet, that they have access, they're answering questions. They're constantly looking for better ways to use TSANet. So I'll share a little bit of where that could take place in the case process, but you want someone that's capable of being responsible for taking feedback and either escalating it up to the business manager if it's something that TSANet needs to fix, or it could be something that they spot something as far as your internal process are working, and they're empowered to make changes or push for feedback in that area as well. So again, kind of stressing that this is an important role, and you want to make sure that this person is inside of the operation. Again, then transitioning into the actual case management process. These are, again, some best practices that we see people do. The first is when it comes to new case. This is part of stressing to engineers and having very verbose descriptions that would include partner products. And again, I think this helps when you're doing things like backlog management, right? We can spot, we're working on X product and it is integrating with partner X product. So if that's something that's part of the description when a customer's calling in, or something that's discovered during that kind of initial triage with the end customer, getting that into description or some notes helps during the backlog management process, which is really where we see the key place of using TSANet, right? So this is, if you're able to get your frontline engineers and those first folks to be really aware of TSANet and involve partners early, that's great. But if that's something that you struggle with getting consistency on, certainly making sure that's part of kind of backlog management. And why aren't we closing this case? Oh, this is one that involves another partner. Why aren't we using TSANet to pull in that partner to help solve it faster? So I think backlog management is an important place to have TSANet awareness. And same thing with escalation management. So I think this tends to be a little bit more obvious to people, that they, when they're escalating it to the next tier, or pulling people into a collaboration internally, is you start to ask this question, is this our product working in isolation, or is the reason something's not being solved here because there's other partner products in that environment that maybe are creating a challenge for isolating and closing it out. So making sure that TSANet's kind of part of these phases is an important part of getting the usage up. Okay. The next area, obviously, and again, this just reiterates the importance of that the key user is promoting ongoing training. Again, I think at all the levels, this is something that needs to be done. So the business manager, obviously, continuing to kind of think, hey, how do I promote this? Sharing it with the different stakeholders, making sure the key users are in place, that they have the right empowerment and they're getting the feedback and people are kind of hearing about TSANet. And then also making sure ongoing training's in place. I see two different things here. One is making sure new engineers, when they're coming on, are being trained, but also we release new features and functionality on the member web. So that tends to happen once or twice a year. So that's another good trigger point to say, hey, we should maybe take a look at our training. Do we need to refresh it? Do we need to have a quick refresher training for our engineers? And then the second one here, lunch and learn with key partners. Again, I think if you really have the key users in place, they're the ones that are going to be more aware of, we escalate a lot with partner X. We tend to find a lot of issues with that partner. And again, part of TSANet is collaborating with partners. And certainly there's the aspect of the transaction or the particular customer issue that you're working, but if there's something systemic going on there, that could drive the request for maybe a lunch and learn or at least some type of a discussion with those key partners to understand how could we improve the collaboration between two key partners. Okay, so with that, I think we're moving over to the final, maybe most important section, and I'll hand over to Dennis here. And this is really, maybe the last thing I'll say about this before I hand off to Dennis is what we tend to find with members that are extremely strong users versus members that are really light users is the ones that are strong users are able to say TSANet isn't really an exception process for working with partners that we don't have other relationships with. TSANet is the process for all partner collaboration, and Dennis will kind of go through how that's accomplished within TSANet.
Yeah, we'll do a deep dive into a couple of different things. Go ahead if you move on to the next slide, Paul, because I want to kind of set this up with how this is sort of morphed into what it is now. And Paul's exactly right. I mean, if we look at this from a value perspective, and a lot of people that are on this call here today that I was noticing maybe aren't taking advantage of this, and this is something that is part of your basic and premium membership. So it's not necessarily an add-on into this thing that's going to cost you money to do. It's part of your membership package. But what we've seen, and historically, the piece behind this is we've always had the basic and the premium TSANet as a way to pull in and have a relationship with a lot of different companies in that many-to-many type relationship. But to then be able to transfer that and use the vendor-neutral infrastructure of TSANet, so the legal infrastructure that we've already got in place, so you don't have to go create separate CSAs. You've got a neutral site, so you've got one place for everybody to go to be able to see how they're going to engage other partners, one place to go for everybody to update that information. And then again, I think the key piece on this slide right here, before we go into the specifics of each partner group, is to understand TSANet is the basic and premium. You've got that requirement of there's got to be a mutual customer in place. And that's the only way it would work in such a big relationship with a lot of different companies. But when you get into this mode, now we're talking about the fact that you can host a relationship. So we're talking about not only can you define the elements of that relationship, but you define who participates in it. So the point of that being that I hear a lot of, oh, well, TSANet wouldn't work for this because there's not a mutual customer in this particular environment. When you get into these custom groups and these partner groups, that doesn't matter because you're defining the elements of that relationship. So it's really morphed itself into this solution support scenario, and we're going to walk into that a little bit, as well as some of these, and many of these are larger scale partner programs. So if you go to the next slide, Paul, we'll kind of dive into the solution support scenario. And this would be basically, and a lot of you are in this environment now where you've got several different partners, not a lot, but several different key partners that are part of a solution that you're providing out to to a set of members. And so what you want to do is you want to provide a very high level of escalation and collaboration amongst that group of partners for this product set. And obviously something like the basic or the premium TSANet doesn't work for that, because you need to define the elements of the relationship differently. And I think you just went, sorry, I don't know if that was on my end or not, sorry. You want to define the elements of that relationship differently, and you want to define who the people are that are part of that relationship. So this gives you the ability to do that. And what we do basically is use the same structure from a legal perspective and from the member web to be able to customize this to whatever it is that you need to do. So we've got an online portal that we can provide for you to do that. You can also use case exchange in this. FlexPod is one of the better examples that we have, where you've got some key companies that have created this solution support scenario for them to be able to collaborate amongst themselves. And it's the same scenario that you're doing from a multi-vendor support perspective, but you're taking it to that next level to provide that high level of collaboration. So this is one area certainly we can help you with. And this next area right here is something that a lot of companies are doing, and I see more and more of this, where you've got a technology partner program out there, and you want to make sure that there's some collaboration mechanism with you and your partners. You've gone through where you've either certifying them, or you've got a solution that you're putting out there that you partnered up with a group of companies, and now you just need to make sure from a support perspective that you've got that collaboration process in place. So what you can do is you can then host again a partner program through TSANet using that same legal structure that everybody's already signed up and is a part of. And you then can also define the elements of that relationship. So you host the relationship, but from your perspective, it's a one-to-many relationship. And from the partner's perspective, it's a simple one-to-one relationship. And what that allows us to do is to actually pull companies in at a very reasonable membership fee, or even to the point to where you can actually pay that fee. And we have companies that do that as well. But then we also go in and we'll co-brand this for you. So we could look at using your logos and talking about your program. And we actually do kind of an account management sort of thing to help you onboard your partners into your group and get them registered into there. So it provides you both the mechanism to get your partners onboarded into there. It also provides the mechanism for you to be able to collaborate with them, and for them to be able to see you specific to your needs, for your partners to be able to collaborate with you, and vice versa for you to be able to go out and collaborate with them. And then you've always got the capability of using case exchange in that as well. So you can pull that in as part of your partner program. We got companies that are doing that as well. So you want to keep that on more of an electronic collaboration mechanism, then you can do that as well. Okay. And then you also got your channel support. Now, this is an area we haven't seen a lot of activity in, but we're seeing more and more and more of this. So if you've got the same kind of mechanism where you've got your technology partners out there, you might have your channel partners that you're doing other things with. You need to establish that mechanism. And as Paul said at the beginning of this, right, what we've tried to design for our members is one place to go where, regardless of the kind of collaboration that needs to occur and whatever mechanism that is, we can help provide that for you. So we can extend that out not only to your technology partners, we can also extend it out to your channel partners as well. And we've got some companies that are doing this. I think, again, this is an area where it will provide even more value into your basic or your premium membership with TSANet. So any of these partner programs, if you want to create them, you need to be at least at the basic or premium level. To participate, obviously, you can come in as what we call a limited member, and then there's different options to do that kind of thing. Okay, and I think, is this our last slide on this? Yep, it is.
Yep, that's the last one.
So, and wow, we timed that pretty well. So, again, if you've got any questions, get a hold of us, and let me see if there's anybody that has anything. I think we got just a couple of minutes. We can go and see if anybody's got anything that they want to ask. And it doesn't look like we've got anything. Again, we will we'll get this recorded and we'll send it out to you if you want to to get it out to any of the people within your environment there, especially if maybe in the last part it could be some of your partner program managers, things like that. Again, as Paul has said throughout this, and it's very true, whether it's the onboarding and adoption piece of this that you want some help with, it'd be more than happy for us to come in and either brainstorm with you or actually help you create some training program or talk about TSANet and how it can provide more value into your organization and get more out of your membership dollar. Okay, I don't think we got any questions. Looks like our time is up. Paul, any closing comments, or are we good?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And again, if you've got any questions or any comments, please feel free to get a hold of us. Have a good one. Thanks very much.